you know, what might be a bit different about mindfulness therapies is that when I was leading that exercise, 95% of my mind was me feeling the sensations of my hand, and the other 5% was the kind of teacher mode. So a little bit different from other therapies, mindfulness-based approaches. It really is about the person doing it in those moments alongside everybody else. And certainly in a therapeutic encounter or even just in a mindfulness training group, people can tell if you're just reading, now look at the hand, now go to the bottom, now, you know, they can tell when you're really doing it.
Well, like I said, you know, we're in fact, I always think it's funny to call it neural Wi-Fi. If you're neurotic, I'm going to pick up the waves like a ripple, but when you're pretty centered, we catch it from each other. We're infectious.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, sorry, just before I could even say, you know, I'm so skeptical about describing things that are such an internal journey, is that what really kind of clinches it for me is that it's almost a trick of the mind, because if you can't be anxious and in your body at the same time. So if people go, well, this isn't for me, you go, well, you know, when you're at a meeting or you know you're going to screw up, or when I'm doing a show, when I start to lose my mind, the only thing I can do to get myself back, because an audience can tell when you're screwing up, and they turn into a kind of braying animal herd about to eat you. You can feel it as if I send my attention down to my feet.
Brilliant.
Automatically the anxiety goes, because your brain can't be in two modes at once. So you could say you're tricking it. And I always think Arabs who use those worry beads, you know, if they're really feeling them, they're pulling down, you know, the adrenaline, cortisol. So maybe they know something. You know, but actually that is the best thing in a meeting, to pull it down, because immediately the fear leaves your eyes. And then the audience like you again. Because they smell, I mean, not everybody smells fear, and they have interesting reactions to it.
And is it the case, Tamara, that some people are better at it in the first place, or perhaps more mindful, perhaps they're already paying more attention to their bodily sensations, perhaps they're already very aware of their senses and what they can see and hear all the time? And I know you're not supposed to judge yourself about it, but are some people just better at it, and others, like me, are quite easily distracted?
I mean, I think there'll be kind of like a normal distribution curve. There is a concept in the literature which is a little bit disputed, but they call it dispositional mindfulness. So these are studies where they've taken a kind of general group of people and given them questionnaires measuring aspects of mindfulness. And there are some that score higher than others, and the ones that score higher tend to also score lower on things like depression inventories and anxiety inventories. But the debate in the literature is these minds are probably different from people who are actively training in mindfulness, because they may have a general kind of ability to be in the moment, but they still have a floppy frontal cortex because they haven't actually done the attention training practice of mindfulness training.
And it is quite a commitment, isn't it? I mean, the Oxford course on mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is, you know, is an 8-week course, but you've got to do 45 minutes practice a day. Yeah. Did you always practice, Ruby?
Well, I was
when
sick,
you did it?
you know, so I really needed to do, you know, I was grabbing at anything. But I'm sure there's, even in the book, because I'm giving alternative, the basic thing is like you can only get a six-pack one way. It's by doing a sit-up. But if you do one, it ain't going to happen. So, you know, we've got it in our heads now physically, you know, that suddenly the country where they didn't even, you know, have dental floss when I first came. Now suddenly everybody's got to go to the gym 3 times a week. So, well, they didn't.
Right.
They didn't. Nobody even knew you're supposed to do something with your teeth. But that now everybody, you know, you see people having to get a six-pack like they're at a Lynx. What do they, you know, do an advertisement for aftershave for a living? So pretty soon you're going to have to know if you're going to, you know, I think that the day is coming that they're going to train it for people. And if you for a second pay attention to where you are, Or, you know, before you go into a kind of heart attack mode, you just go, oh, I'm going. Every time you do that, you're already building up the muscles in the prefrontal cortex. You don't have to know neuroscience, but you're actually training that part of the brain, you know, that has introspection, and that's already tightening it. You know, that's where all the research is. You get a buildup of neurons here, so that rather than being trickwire, limbic, and frightened, there's a pause, and in that pause, you already have a choice in how you're going to react. So every second of awareness is throwing the whole system. I don't think you have to go 45 minutes a day.
From the evidence-based point of view, the standardized 8-week program, as you say, very strongly recommends 45 minutes of practice every day. But I think Ruby's point is an important one, which is the original mindfulness-based stress reduction program was designed for people with chronic physical health problems. So these were people whose medical issues had reached the limits of the medical model. The doctors would say, well, we can't do any more tests, you've had all the drugs that you have, but we know that stress exacerbates the problem, so would you be willing to do something to help you manage stress better? So if you're in that situation, you know, you probably can find 45 minutes a day to practice. Similarly, if you've had 3 or more episodes of depression, the drugs aren't working, you've spent all your money on therapy, you know, you're in a different kind of motivational position to be thinking about that. What's happening now, though, is that it's sort of permeating into different fields and maybe meeting people at a place where they're not so much kind of suffering, but they want to thrive. But when people are in that situation, when it comes to kind of making decisions about health promotion activities, 45 minutes to do anything every day seems like a huge amount of commitment. So we talked a little bit about this earlier on. You know, the interest now is about thinking, how can we maybe be a bit more creative about ways to let people just, you know, have a little taste of what it might be like to be a bit more present and aware. And from that, you may then decide, oh, actually, something was a bit different. Maybe if I did a bit more, I could be better at this.